Hey everyone, welcome to the show. It's me, Jeff. We've got a special guest today. We've got our volunteer, Thomas Hicks. Welcome to the show, Thomas.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Now, of course, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world recently. I mean, there's been riots, there's been fires, floods, earthquakes, civil unrest. There's been viruses, of course, all this kind of stuff going on. And it's thrown, especially with the lockdowns, it's thrown everyone into kind of a state of panic, especially at first. And a lot of people were caught unprepared, which is why I wanted to have you on to talk today, because I know you are a big preparedness guru. It's kind of your hobby. So I was hoping you could give us some tips and pointers for me, but also for all of our viewers as well.
Sure, definitely. And just to give a little bit of my background, I'm an Eagle Scout. I've been kind of into this whole preparedness world, if you will, for probably, I guess, a decade now. Some people call it prepping. The term kind of has a bit of a negative connotation because it's just
that's what I thought of too.
everybody has this
tinfoil hat with the bunker and
right, right, right. Just this idea of stockpiling and thinking the world's going to collapse and not really rationally going about it. I really like to start with a few things as far as going into the basics, right? There's three things you have to really prepare. Mindset, first off, is everything. No matter what situation you're in, you're going to need the proper mindset to handle it. Whether you're just, living a normal everyday life, or you're stuck in the woods all alone and you don't really have anything with you, mindset can be the thing that saves you. Next on that list, the next thing would be your skills, both your hard skills that you've kind of developed over time, just the ability to do certain things like, build a fire, build shelter, purify water, things like that. And soft skills, just being kind of aware of your surroundings, things like that. And then, of course, you have the big thing that most preppers focus on, and that's just all of your supplies, right? All of the things, your equipment, the things you're going to stockpile for the doomsday scenario when you go into the bunker.
Okay. So we got mindset,
and so those are like
and equipment or supplies. All right. Okay.
Right. So those are the big things to kind of when you first start, because this whole topic, right? It can be quite overwhelming to think about because you don't spend every single day, every single waking hour. At least most of us don't.
I hope not.
Just thinking about the end of the world, right? Yeah. It'd be quite depressing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a time not so long ago, about a year and a half ago, where a lot of us were starting to think that way, and we saw all the panic that ensued then from not being prepared. So that's definitely, being prepared can help you be ready for those situations.
Yeah, and now I'm curious about the mindset that you mentioned, because clearly, when all of the corona stuff started to go down, a lot of people were not in the right mindset and they panicked and you're buying all of the toilet paper. So what is the right mindset to be ready for a disaster emergency scenario?
Well, the right mindset would just be to really be pragmatic about the situation. Know basically what can happen, do your research, be knowledgeable as much as you can, and just be collected, because if you panic, you're more than likely to make the wrong decision, spend the money on the wrong resource. A lot of people were buying up foods that were perishable items instead of canned foods, right? Just because they were panicking and they were only buying, the available foods at the store, or bags of potato chips when you could buy canned goods for less, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it last a lot longer, have a lot more nutritional value. So
yes,
being collected, I think collected is probably the best way to phrase in one word what your mindset should be. Just completely able to focus on what's going around you without being caught up in the moment.
Okay, good. So we've got mindset and skills. What kind of skills does someone want to have?
Well, so there's so many skills to have, right? It's a really vast topic, and you can go anywhere from just basic wilderness survival all the way up to long-term survival on your own without any support network.
Hunger
for the rest
game
of forever,
type
right?
stuff. Hunger Games type
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. So, right. So I like to start with, the basics. And really, being able to build a fire, being able to purify your own water, um, being able to even collect your own water, right? If the tap's turned off today, what would you do? Just ask yourself questions about what is it that you need on a daily basis to survive, and then kind of find ways to mitigate if those resources went away. So, like, if your electricity went off, what would you do? If your gas went off to your stove, what would you do? If water turned off, what would you do? If there's no longer food available in the stores, things like that, right? So basically asking yourself questions about, where everything comes from, where do you get it, and what would happen if you didn't have that. Those are kind of where you want to start with your skills. Um,
Nice. So it sounds like that kind of feeds
really,
from it sounds like that kind of feeds from the mindset of like being prepared, thinking about
right.
ahead of time what could happen, and then trying to address those things in your skill set.
Yeah, certainly. And so really I like to focus on skills that are going to have multi-dimensional values. Building a fire is, it's one of the most primitive, but it's also one of the most important ones, because you can use it to stay alive, if it's cold out, right? You can use it to purify water by boiling it. You can use it to make food. So, you've got multiple aspects to that one skill that really come in handy there.
Mhm. Very nice, very nice. Well, that's kind of a basic thing for scouts, right? Especially Eagle Scouts.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, definitely.
Excellent.
And really, there's a saying that it kind of gets bandied about in the prepper community. It's called two is one is none, right? Having backup plans to your backup plans. So like, say you have a Bic lighter, that's the easiest way to build a fire with, right? You just hit the button and now you've got a flame.
Kind of feels like
That's
cheating.
really the easiest. Yeah, it does, right? We're so fortunate. But, on top of that, flint and steel, you could have, you can use a bow to make just basically using a friction fire. Um, if you really wanted to get primitive with it.
Never tried that actually, but
There's quite a few.
it's the
Yeah,
classic in cartoons.
yeah, I don't recommend it, because you're gonna have to find pretty particular wood. You're gonna have to spend, and it's gonna be it needs to be quite dry. You're gonna have to spend quite a while trying to make it, and it's a mostly fruitless endeavor at most times, unless you really build that skill. It goes back to skill building.
Yeah,
If you work on it, if you practice it enough, you're going to get proficient with it.
to be really determined. But
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, then of course you've got the equipment on top of that, which the lighter, the flint and steel, all your different devices for staying alive. So those are your basic skills. I think really on top of being able to build a fire to purify water with, is just being able to find water, knowing where to locate it, how to get to different sources. Where I live in the Southeast, we get a lot of rain. So it's pretty easy to put a tarp out on, a few days out of the week, you might get some rain and get enough water to survive with just that. You've got lakes, streams, ponds pretty much everywhere to collect from. So just being able to build those kind of basic skills for staying alive, how to identify plants, how to identify, wild animals, things like that really come in handy too. And those are just the basics, right?
yeah,
In a pandemic situation like we had last year, when society is potentially collapsing, those might not be the most necessitated at first, but they could down the line.
true. You never know when something starts. You never know how bad it's going to get at the outset.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
okay, so equipment was the last one in there, and I bet you could go crazy in depth with the equipment,
Yeah.
but imagine a lot
So
of people are on a budget
I brought a
too.
prop actually.
Okay.
Definitely. And so I've got one of my favorite preparedness items I actually brought with me. This right here, I don't know, for anybody listening, it's a water filter. It's about 4 inches long and about an inch wide. It's a Sawyer Mini water filter. These are $20. They screw onto the end of most water bottles, and they will filter up to 100,000 gallons. So quite a bit of water. And for $20, it's pretty unbeatable.
Wow.
I think that's
100,000,
probably
yeah.
one of my most recommended. Yeah, 100,000 gallons. It's almost unbelievable to 0.1 micron.
Wow. That is, does the water
So,
come out any, like, does it come out slower having to go through that, or?
no. So you're actually, since you can put it on the end of a water bottle, you just squeeze the water bottle and the pressure pushes it through just fine.
Hmm. Very cool.
But
Huh.
yeah, quite a worthwhile investment, in my opinion.
Very neat.
You can get them on Amazon.
That is very cool. Hmm. And do they have a shelf life? Do they go bad after a while, or?
Well, I know with most water filters, they recommend not allowing it to freeze or get into freezing conditions while it has water in it. As long as it's dry, it should be fine.
Huh.
But yeah,
Very
and
cool.
they do get clogged up over time, but when you buy one, it does come with a syringe so you can backflow through the other end
Hmm.
and basically push everything out so it's good to go again.
Okay, so it sounds like, of course, you need water to live. You die pretty quick without it. So getting a few of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
might be a good start for any emergency kit. And they just screw onto the end of
definitely.
a water bottle, or also like a hose, or?
Anything that's just got that standard water bottle and that thread fitting should work just fine. I'm sure you could find an end of a hose that might work well with it.
All right, good, very good. Okay, so
Yeah,
cool. That's
definitely. And
a
they do make adapters for them, so you could put it onto something else, like say a Camelback water bladder that you would hike with. It'll pop right onto the end of it.
nice, nice. All right, so that's a pretty cheap, but also very necessary thing. One of the
Yeah,
things, right? So what are some other big things like that? Water, food, of course, is another big one. You're gonna die pretty quick without food. Well, relatively quick. You don't
yeah,
want to go without it, let's say that.
yeah. So actually, there's something I wanted to hit on. There's kind of the rules of three, right? You need 3 minutes without air. You're gonna expire. 3 hours without shelter if you're out in the elements, and even quicker than that sometimes if you go hypothermic. Um, you get exposed to bad enough elements, you're going to die pretty quickly. 3 days without water, and then 3 weeks without food. Those are kind of the basics of the rule of three. And it makes it easy to remember what the human body needs to survive.
Okay, that's good. So 3 minutes without air, no,
3 hours
hours
without
without
shelter.
shelter, 3 days without water,
Right.
3 weeks without food. Okay, so air,
Yeah.
because there's not much. Is there anything you can really do about air for a survival situation?
Uh,
You kind of assume it's still going
I
to
mean,
be there.
right. It depends what you're being exposed to, right? You could if you've got something really bad, say biological or chemical attack or whatever, you could have
Yes.
a gas mask, and that'll keep you alive if you're using it properly, and you don't have facial hair like myself, and there's a lot of considerations there,
True, true.
but not much else you can do besides that, really, other than having an oxygen tank with you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a little awkward to say the least. And shelter was the next
It
one,
is.
which is strange because I thought water would be next, but it's shelter after that as the most important.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It kind of gets overlooked a lot of times. But especially important when you're in a wilderness survival situation.
Mhm.
Because if you end up needing, to spend the night somewhere and say it gets to sub-freezing temperatures, not having shelter is a really fast way to go. In fact, so interesting story, and bit of I guess it's on topic. My granddad was a scoutmaster back in the 70s and 80s. And so he actually had an assistant scoutmaster that froze to death on a mountain on a hike
Oh,
because he didn't have a high enough rated sleeping bag, and he didn't have a quality tent, and he was wearing cotton. And,
oh,
cotton, it doesn't wick away moisture. So if you sweat, it freezes and you go hypothermic and you can expire quite quickly.
oh, that's awful.
So yeah, pretty gruesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say if you had to leave your home middle of the night catches on fire or something, and you have to grab something to take with you so you don't freeze to death. What's that something going to be?
So they make these really cool and really cheap mylar blankets. They've got it's basically a tin cover or aluminum covered reflective material on it that reflects your body heat. You can get them probably a few dollars in most places. Amazon, I'm sure, is one of the most, I guess, biggest places you can go for preparedness items. Really,
Hmm.
you can get them at Walmart. You can get them pretty much anywhere. And if you're on a budget, it's going to be the most effective tool you can have for staying alive in the elements.
Hmm. Okay, so it's mylar covered with this shiny foil stuff. It sounds like it would tear easily, be pretty fragile. Is that the case?
It depends on the manufacturer. Most of them tend to be pretty durable. It can tear, but you also, you get what you pay for, right? And an emergency situation, something that tears, it might be okay as long as it keeps you alive, right?
Hmm, true. And it sounds like it would be waterproof too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So there's the air, then shelter, water, we talked about briefly. That
Yeah.
great purifier or boiling, and then some kind of container to carry the water would be helpful.
Yeah, so that's another thing I wanted to jump into. And there's a lot of these I guess mnemonic reminders you have that kind of help you remember things. And I guess it's a kind of a thing in the preparedness community, just easy ways to remember stuff. Because easy ways to remember equals more skills that you can keep on top of your head
And
at all times.
it's easier when you're panicked too to remember a
Yeah,
mnemonic
certainly.
in your mind.
Right. So one of those would be the 5 C's. You've got cutting, so knife, or saw or axe, whatever you prefer, whatever's going to be the most, I guess, beneficial to you. Everybody's got their preference. Combustion is the second one, so fire. Any ways, multiple ways you can basically build a fire with. Then you've got cordage. So it doesn't seem the most, I guess, it's not the first thing you would think of, right, when it comes to being prepared is having rope, but having
Oh, rope.
some type of cordage.
I thought like a cord
Right.
of
Yeah.
firewood bound
So
together. It's like, what?
right. No, no, no.
Yeah.
So cordage being like paracord, parachute cord, is usually the most efficient way to go about it, because the military standard 550 paracord will hold up to 550 pounds of weight, and it's relatively thin. It's only a few millimeters, maybe about a centimeter, I guess. And you can store a lot of it. It's pretty lightweight. But when it comes to cordage, you can use it for building a shelter. You can use it for, I guess, if you wanted to, if you're in bear country, keep a bear bag off the ground with it. You can use it for creating a splint if you broke your leg. It just really allows you to have a lot of capability with just something that's so simple and lightweight. So that's the 3C is cordage. 4 is container. Typically, you want a metal container because you can carry water in it. You can use that to boil your water. You can use it to cook food. You can do all sorts of things. It really comes in handy to have some sort of container, whatever your preference is as far as size or weight or material. That's really up to you. But having a container is pretty invaluable because you're not going to be able to carry any water you find really and then boil it without having a container.
Yeah, especially
Um,
metal. Be
and then,
difficult.
yeah, definitely. And then lastly is cover. And that kind of really comes back to that whole shelter aspect, being out of the elements, having some sort of cover to keep you out of the rain, keep the wind off of you, even keep the sun off of you. I like things that are kind of multi-aspect, right? We talked about this a moment ago, but a poncho is probably one of the best things to fill that role of having cover, because you can wear it. It's going to keep you out of the elements while you wear it, but then also you can use it as a shelter. With the addition of your cordage, you can create a lean-to, a tarp, if you will, covering to keep you out of the elements there. And then if you wanted to expand it further, once you've got your lean-to built, you could put branches leaned up against it. You put leaves, pine straw on top of that, and then you can insulate it. And so now you've got a much more preferable shelter from the cold.
That does sound much better than just huddling in a poncho. Okay,
Yeah, definitely.
very good. So was that was all five C's, right?
Yeah, that was the five C's:
Cutting.
cutting, combustion, cordage, container, and then cover.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. So then ideally, you'd get all those things in some kind of like a light backpack or something you just grab and take
Oh
out
yeah,
if
yes,
something
certainly.
happens.
So that comes to another thing I wanted to talk about is just layering your systems, right? So you can go all the way from just whatever's on your person. That's what you want to start with. So being able to carry a knife wherever you go is really handy. I know a lot of places you can't carry it. I work at the airport. I can't keep a knife on me. So that can be a problem, right?
Yeah.
You know, then you can easily keep a lighter on you. If you're a smoker, not recommending it, but it
Needs the
it's easy to keep a
excuse.
lighter on you at all times.
Mhm.
Um, then from your person, what you keep on your person, you can go on to what you keep in like a day bag, a purse. I've got a backpack that stays with me at all times. Just it makes it easy to have the necessities. I like to keep a little bit of medical equipment in there. And speaking on medical, one of those things that's easy to keep on your person is a tourniquet. They run about $25 for a quality tourniquet, and you can save lives pretty quickly with one. If you need one and don't have it, it's hard to replicate with a belt or a T-shirt or something like that. And to me, it's so simple, it's so cheap for what it does, so easy to carry on you. Having a tourniquet's pretty much, at least in my world, it's kind of mandatory,
Huh. Carrying it on
just
your
because of
person.
the capabilities it gives you.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
So
something most people wouldn't
it
think
can
of.
slide into a pocket. Yeah, it can slide into a pocket. They make carriers so you can carry one around your ankle. They're pretty small and compact. It's easy to do if you adjust your lifestyle a little bit to it.
Okay, good. So,
Um, but yeah, yeah. So the next was like the day bag, the purse, right? You can kind of layer and go into having more items in that, right? So you can kind of build up, carry the bulkier things that you just can't fit in your pocket, you can't fit in your person. And from there, you can go into more larger scale, I guess, bags, right? So keep a bag in your car for or near the door for if you were to just have to leave everything and just go at a moment's notice. Like say Yellowstone supervolcano is erupting, right? Not the most likely scenario, but if you have to get out real
who
quick,
knows? Yeah.
if you don't have time to pack, at least you've got a bag that you can live at for a few days or a few weeks and be able to survive any situation you're going to encounter. It's really handy to have that when you need it. From there, stuff that you can keep in your vehicle, maybe not the most mobile type items, right? Like say if you needed an axe and you didn't want to carry it, on your bag or on your person.
What kind of
Uh,
person doesn't want to carry an axe around?
right, certainly. But it could come in handy. Having one in your truck or in your trunk. Just the larger items like that, right? Not saying you have to go carry an axe everywhere now, but that's just a example.
Okay.
Um, and then from there, just stuff you keep at your house, right? Stuff like if you're going to just bug in and survive and just ride out whatever's happening, your house is always your best bet because you can store much more there that you would need to survive, than what you can on your person or in a bag. You can have much larger variety of tools, a much greater amount of food preparations, and we can get into that later. But just your home's your castle, right? And you want to treat it as such.
Okay, nice. So multiple, I guess, layers of preparation starting with yourself so that no matter where you are, if something goes down, you'll have at least some degree of preparation and not be caught completely off guard without any resources to help you survive.
Yeah, certainly. One of the things I like to keep on my person when I can is a small pin light, a little flashlight about the size of a pin, because there's plenty of situations you can find yourself in where the lights go out, power goes out. Uh, you might need it, and the light on your cell phone isn't always the best.
Hmm. True. True. Hmm. All right. So knife, pen, flashlight. All right.
Right.
Anything else? You mentioned a tourniquet. Anything else that people should just kind of have on their person?
Um, well, it depends on your level of preparedness, right? And what you're willing to the level of risk you're willing to accept, the levels of how much you want to carry, right? Security is definitely a big thing. We've noticed within the last year or so that, you're not always going to be able to rely on police when you need them. So if you can and you're comfortable with it, having some sort of self-defense, carrying a handgun, is a good idea. I think it really depends on your laws and what level of risk you're willing to accept there. But I believe it's a good idea.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah, because you're right. You never know what's going to happen, what's going to go down. The last thing you
Certainly.
know.
And yeah, and really to sum up all of the whole preparedness thing is it's better to, have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
That's a good mantra. I like it. Okay. So now one thing you haven't talked about yet, which is near and dear to my heart, is food. So in this kind of scenario, what food would you want to have? You briefly mentioned not to, of course, panic buy a bunch of salad, for example. It's going to be bad in a week.
Absolutely.
But
Right.
so what kinds of things do you want to purchase?
So it depends on your layers, right? So like say on your person, right, you might be able to keep a candy bar, but that's not going to get you very far long term.
No.
So as far as long term food storage, this is a topic that I've spent quite a bit of thought on. Just because, well, we all experienced it last year, right? And I was thankfully at the time I was already pretty well into getting myself, I guess, prepared fully in that. I don't want to say fully because nobody can ever be fully prepared, right?
It's true. Yeah.
But just getting to more to my level of comfort, my goals. I was really checking off a lot of my goals in the food preparedness category. So I like to start with the basics, the stuff that's going to be the cheapest, the easiest to store, the longest term food storage, and just hit all of your macronutrients, your calorie needs.
Mhm.
So I kind of like to branch it into there's the dry goods are the basis to build everything off of. So you've got your rice, you've got your corn, you've got beans, whatever beans you like. Pinto are usually the cheapest and easiest to find.
Nice.
Um, and then on top of that, wheat, hard red winter wheat, oats, things like that, oatmeal. Those dry goods store very easily. What I like to do is I'll take a 5 gallon bucket, get a Mylar bag that's also 5 gallons, take that, fill it up to the top, put a couple of oxygen absorbers in it. I think for 5 gallons, 2,000 cc's of oxygen absorbers is the right number. And then seal up the top with like a straightening iron. And then at that point, it's good to stay shelf stable for 25 plus years. And it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
I don't know what the prices are now because I haven't bought any in a while, but I think a 50-pound bag of rice like Sam's Club or Costco is going to run you around $20.
Yeah. For the
That's
amount of
quite a bit
use.
of calories for the money.
Yeah, for the amount of use you can get out of that,
Yeah,
that's really good, especially if you can make it last for 25 years. 'Cause then
yeah,
that's the kind of thing you have to do once, and then you kind of have that peace of mind of knowing that it's there and that you're at least somewhat covered
yeah,
in that regard.
yeah, certainly. And I like that system of having the buckets and the bags, because they kind of just it layers there to protect it. So what the Mylar bags do is they're going to keep out the oxygen, they're going to keep out the sunlight, and those are the things that are going to really make food deteriorate at a faster rate, lose their shelf life. And then the bucket is just to keep anything and everything out of it, water, pests, rodents, things like that.
Mhm.
And I just keep it up on a shelf off the ground. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, those four categories are going to fill a lot of your basic caloric needs. And then on top of that, you can store stuff like all of your dry goods, your pastas, kind of things that you wouldn't bulk store. You wouldn't. Well, I personally wouldn't bulk store a lot of spaghetti. but not so much as rice, right?
Yeah.
It depends how much you like spaghetti noodles. But
Can
then
get old
on top,
fast.
yeah, on top of your dry goods, then you want to move towards other things that are also going to stay, maybe not 25 plus years shelf stable, but 3 or 4 years, like canned goods, right? So your canned vegetables, your canned soups, canned fruits, things of that nature, canned sauces, even, I stockpile my favorite hot sauces, because you never know.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
and when you're having to eat rice and beans every day, you want some variety there.
Something to spice it up at least.
Definitely.
That could get old real
So yeah,
fast. Okay. So
yeah,
now in the canned stuff, would you also include canned meats like tuna fish, etc.?
yeah, definitely. It can get quite expensive very quickly, when you're trying to store canned meats, as far as the bang for your buck amount of calories you're getting for the dollars you're spending, compared to your dry goods. And so, that's why I like having the beans in there, right? You're getting your proteins at least,
Right, right.
from that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do store like canned salmon, canned tuna, Vienna sausages, potted
Classic.
meat.
Yeah.
Definitely. It might
Spam.
not, yeah, definitely. It might not be the most nutritional, or the most, I guess, healthiest meats, but they're
Yeah.
going to get the job done,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Better
you'll be
that
happy to
than
have them for cheaper.
exactly. Exactly. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, one of the things I like to do is rotate, because with canned foods, since they're going bad every few years, you kind of do the first in first out thing that the grocery stores do. Whatever you put in first, that's what you consume first. That way, when you're resupplying, every time you go to the store, you get another can, you add it to the back, and you pull from the front.
That's a
That way,
good,
you have a buffer of a few years from the time anything might happen.
nice. You don't
And
want to
so
get
that you never have to worry about that.
exactly. You don't want to get into the emergency situation and realize that most of your food is expired. That's a little
Yeah,
too late then.
certainly. And I don't want to make a blanket recommendation here, but a lot of times, especially with canned goods, the dates of expiration on them, are usually just for flavor guarantees. Since they're canned in such a high quality facilities that are really safety minded, they last several years after that date, actually. So, if you do find yourself in a situation a few years down the road,
It's
that
still going to.
that could come in handy. Even, if you find expired food, give it the smell test, right? We have noses for a reason. If it
Mhm.
smells rotten, it's probably rotten.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, you don't want to throw away food that is actually perfectly fine just because it's a day or two or even a month past the best by date.
Yeah,
Hmm,
definitely.
okay.
Yeah, so just give it a look, make sure there's no mold, make sure it's not, smelling rotten,
Hmm.
even if it's separated and doesn't look quite good, as long as there's no mold, you might be pretty okay.
Yeah, not quite as good as it could be is better than no food at all.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so talked about a lot of stuff. We had the three for preparedness, the mindset, the skills, and
Yeah,
equipment. And we
definitely.
talked about then there was another three.
Um,
The rule of three, that was it.
yeah, the rule of three. Yeah, yeah,
3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Talked
yeah.
about
Right.
how to address each of those. And the five C's. I'm gonna have to put
Yes,
these
sir.
in the video description. I can't remember.
Certainly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's something to cut with,
Right.
cordage, the rope,
Yep.
something to burn,
Combustion.
combustion,
Yeah.
and then a container
Right.
and another C.
Cover.
Cover,
Cover was the last.
cover. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll get this yet. It'll be good. Okay.
Good.
So then the general goal, at least of this discussion here, is to go over the basics, right? Because there's so much depth that you could go into.
Yes, it's goodness expansive topic.
All right. Well, then before we close out, I'm sure we can address this another time, go deeper in depth on some really
Definitely.
neat stuff we could do. But for today, talk about the basics. So are there any closing thoughts you'd like to really hammer home to people who are listening?
Well, since it's such an overwhelming topic, and a lot of us, when we're first starting into this, it can be quite difficult to pin down one thing to focus on. It's just always go back to the basics, right? Those, food, water, shelter, all of that. And start with what you have, with what your budget is. Don't go out and spend your life savings on a bunch of freeze-dried food that's going to be overpriced and cost way too much for what you're getting. At least not at the beginning, right? You want to focus on the basics. Is definitely the key there. So get yourself a lighter, get yourself a cheap water filter that's going to get the job done, like the Sawyer Mini. Those basics, build that foundation, and then go from there. There's lots of online resources. One of my favorites is survivalblog.com. They've been around probably the longest when it comes to online presence of preparedness community. And they're really just a wealth of information that is there. So definitely go check that out.
Okay, so it sounds like starting small is a key, because it can be so overwhelming and so expansive. So starting with what you can do now and taking little steps sounds like a key part to not get overwhelmed.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
And then lots of available resources like the survivalblog.com. I know there are books.
Yeah, Survival Blog is a good one.
Yeah.
Right. And you can find plenty of PDFs of old manuals, old books online. I definitely recommend looking into that because there's so much knowledge out there. There's so much free resources that you can take advantage of. That's building those skills and being able to build those skills for free. They're really going to serve you better, in my opinion, than just buying all of the gear, buying all of the food, buying all of whatever, and not knowing how to use it or how to regenerate resources. So definitely start with those free things because they can get you a lot farther, a lot quicker.
Excellent. All right. I love it. We'll put definitely all of this in the notes section for the show. That'll make it easier. People remember some of the 3 C's, the 5 C's, and all of that. But we can definitely get in, delve some more into topics at a future date. I think this was great for a little overview. So,
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, so Thomas Hicks, thanks so much again for coming on the show. And
hey, thanks for having me, Jeff.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, share, subscribe, drop a comment. If you'd like, please go over and visit our website and donate to one of our causes. VIA couldn't do anything without the generous support of donors like you.